Free Man Church. It's a very wild day today in Albion, with a warm wind bending the trees and scudding the clouds across the sky. After a solid downpour all day yesterday. We live in such a strange world at the moment, I think. And Free Man Church, and I'm sure that anybody listening here will know what I'm talking about. I'm a bit of a free man in the church myself, actually. And yesterday I went up to church and sat through the service. The only part of the service that I like are the Bible readings. Now, they read from the Good News Bible very often, but at least they're Bible readings, and there's 2 every Sunday. And I prepare them carefully in my AV and follow along with a bit of tut-tutting occasionally, silently. But that's what I value. All the rest of the stuff that comes from the platform is just noise to me. Yesterday, a gentleman was on the platform, an African man, and he was introduced as the donations officer or the collection officer for the West Midlands branch of Christian Aid. And his purpose at the meeting, I think, was perhaps to validate their work. And the fact that he was an African man, I think, was seen as a plus in such a validation. Unfortunately, he had quite a strong accent, and the microphone and loudspeaker system is already, to me, it interferes with understanding. And I hardly understood a single word that he said, and I'm pretty sure I wasn't alone in that. He was just difficult to understand, and also the things that he was saying were just talking points or propaganda, really. They're trying to drum up collections at this time of the year to donate to Christian Aid, which will squander the money in corrupt charities. It's disheartening, to be fair. But I've been moved and told to go to the local church, and that's what I do. And it's been a blessing because I live a very lonely life, and I can form relationships at the church of some description, although I'm, seen as a bit of an outsider, I think, because I'm so critical. And, I'm a bit of a thorn in the side, I suppose. And yesterday, after the service, I went to have my cup of tea, as many people do. I don't know quite where to sit, so I sat alone. And after a while, a young lady came to the table and introduced herself, and she said that she was the minister's wife. And she was a very pleasant young lady. It was nice to chat to her, and she came to chat to me. She wanted to know who I was. Well, I hardly know how to answer that. But I gave her, I suppose I tried to describe my presence in the church and why I was there. But I don't like the church, and I had to say that. I don't really like the services. I don't really support it in any way. But I should have stressed, and I forgot to, that, I still attend because I like the people. I like to talk to people. And she gave me such a wonderful opportunity to share my ideas. And I was a bit truculent, I think. I don't know whether I was irritated or something. And she inquired about my attendance at the Bible study, which I'd shared, and did I like it, and so on and so forth. And I said, well, I do, because I love the Bible. But they don't use a Bible; they use the Good News version. And so she asked me which version I preferred. And my answer, I should have been clearer, but I just said, well, I read the Bible. And of course, she just looked at me and said, yes, but which Bible? And I said, well, the Bible. I was being provocative, of course. And it was just because I was irritated. So eventually I said, well, the Bible is the authorized version, that's the Bible. But I went on to stress that I'm not KJV only. And I think that's an important distinction, because the KJV only people seem to be criticizing people who prefer to read different translations of the Bible. And that's not something I want to do. I've discovered this over the years. It's taken me a while to understand that while we can and must indeed, once understanding comes, while we can believe the Bible and that the Bible is the authorized version, people must be free to read the version that they find the most helpful, without any form of censure or criticism or whatsoever. And the KJV only movement is just argumentative on this point, and I don't support that. It's divisive. Let people read the Good News Bible. The important thing is to know that in any case of, you're not reading the Bible, you're reading a version. You're reading a summary. You're reading an abridged version, or you're reading an explanation. You're not actually reading a Bible. And it contains, whatever it is, I'm sure it contains a great deal of wisdom and understanding. But any time there's any kind of dispute or any kind of difficulty, you must refer to the authorized version. Now, of course, she was ready to debate translations, but I don't get into that stuff. I know the arguments. I've heard them so many times that they'll tell you this is wrong and that is wrong. And I just don't accept any of them. But the fundamental point, and I should have made it, and I neglected to do so, is that the Bible is a blood-sealed covenant. We understand that from the words of the Bible. It's a blood-sealed covenant. It's a legal document. It is the law. And the Bible itself tells us that it will never change, never be removed. So as a legal document, there must be only one version. Any legal document that is published in 2 or 3 versions cannot stand, because immediately any dispute will be negated on the basis that, well, which version are we referring to? If it's not clarified, then the document becomes null and void. If the Bible is true, there must be a Bible. It's quite simple, really. And that Bible is the authorized version. There's no other candidate. Without getting into the delicacies of, Greek and Hebrew and the translators and all the stuff that they'll bring up. There's no other candidate. The Septuagint, people might say. But you see, faithful Christians, the people that really believe and that act on their belief, I've discovered over the years, they all advocate the authorized version. They all read the authorized version. Why? Because it is the Bible. It can be shown mathematically. It can be shown by so many ways. It's the 7th translation. 7 is the number of completion. That's just important. It's the 7th English translation of the Word of God, and it has endured for more than 400 years. That's not by chance. It was never adopted by the church. It's not an official Bible. It's an authorized Bible. It was authorized by the king to be read in churches. It's not copyrighted. When you buy a King James Bible, an authorized version of the Bible, your money is going simply to the paper and binding. You're not paying any third party with a vested interest. And it's available to all and for low prices. I'm sure you can buy an authorized version online for little more than £20. And it will bless you. That is the Bible. But, you know, if you prefer a different version, then that's fine. I don't think there should be any division over this at all. But there has to be a standard. There has to be a benchmark in these matters. And that benchmark is the authorized version, without a doubt. Now, this young lady who I was talking to, I discovered after a short period of conversation that she was also herself a minister, and she preaches in different churches. I didn't, point out the obvious that she doesn't therefore believe the Bible, but clearly she doesn't, because a woman who believes the Bible will not stand on a platform and preach. But, I don't want to create division in the church and unnecessarily antagonize people. I won't attend a church service where a woman is on the platform. It was listening to women that started the whole problem, in a manner of speaking, isn't it? Really. Very, very dangerous for a man to bow his head in the presence of a woman. But there was Deborah, who looked after our people for many years in the olden days, at the time of the judges, I think, when no judge was found among the men, and a woman stepped up. The Bible makes it clear that this was an unorthodox and uncommon remedy. But the praise and worship of Deborah are clear beyond doubt. This was a woman of God. There are women of God. And when a woman is truly of God, she is a powerful force. So it was interesting to speak to the minister's wife. I very much enjoyed our conversation, and I hope we'll have another opportunity to talk. She's, obviously she has kind of some modern ideas about the Word of God, but she seemed to be interested in it, and we need to be interested in it. It's the foundation of our faith. So I'm hopeful that I will gradually be able to spread this understanding in the church also. and it's my intention to ask permission in due time of the minister to perhaps give a talk on my belief and on, well, not so much my belief, but on the reality of the authorized version. But I don't want to do it in opposition to the church, not as a criticism, although I am critical, and I'm critical of all churches. I don't care which version they use, because my experience has shown me that they are not faithful at all. I'm sorry to have to say. I explained to this young lady what my vision of a perfect church would be, which would be to have reading from the Bible, from the pulpit. I didn't specify that it would preferably be a man. You know, the clarity of reading also is something that troubles me, because when you read from the Bible, you must read clearly and distinctly, and you'll see that in the book of Ezra, which is the only time in the Bible that a pulpit is mentioned, and the prophet, not the prophet, I'm sorry, the chief priest, who may have been called Zadok. I don't know, my memory is not as good as it might be. But whoever it was read clearly and distinctly, I think you'll find the word distinctly, the words of the Bible, and the people joined in, and they read the law. At the time, that would have been what was available, the Pentateuch, the Torah. They didn't have the whole Bible, but they praised God. You know, any preacher or pastor or minister who goes and steps into the pulpit and opens his mouth, what better words will ever come out of it than the words that are written in the Bible? You can't better them. They are perfect. We read a short part from the book of Amos from the platform yesterday. And today I'm planning to read Amos again. I've read it many times. There's some beautiful stuff in there. One of the problems in the church, of course, is that they don't know who Israel is. They don't praise Israel. They don't recognize that Israel is, you know, our people. Most of the people in the church are Judahites, direct descendants of Jacob. Once you realize that, the Bible really starts to vibrate, and you become more and more uncomfortable as you realize what our ancestors have done with the Word of God. That's my understanding of it. But going back to my title, Free Man Church, it seems that the adversary is intent on exposing himself. And I think this is inevitable. We have to be shown that he is in control of everything. And also the faithful are going to be led on his premises. But that can't happen, because there are many people around the world with their eyes open, and they understand that deception is mixed with everything. But we have the ability to separate the truth from falsehood, because we have the Word of God, the scepter of the King, and we hear the voice of Jesus Christ, and we know him as our shepherd. We can't be misled we are fixed in our mind. So I would understand it. God bless this morning for anybody who may be listening.